Welcome back to Talking Dragon Age, the show where I talk about Dragon Age. Today we're talking about Golems. Golems were created by Caridin during the first Blight when the Deep Roads were being overrun by Darkspawn. The creation of his golems was reliant on the Anvil of the Void. The process went something like this. Caridin would dress a dwarf in the armor of a golem, then lay the dwarf on the anvil where he proceeded to pour molten lyrium through the grooves. The armor would be hammered into shape as the lyrium solidified, and thus a golem was born. Control rods were fashioned for the golems to ensure obedience. The golems made a big difference in driving the Darkspawn back, but the king eventually forced Caridin to create golems from unwilling participants. After 6 years, Caridin finally said enough was enough and refused. However, his apprentices then forced him to become a golem, though they couldn't create control rods, so he retained his mind. He sealed the anvil away, preventing it from being misused any further. Let's talk about how Caridin started. The first entry in his journal says the ancestors had given him a vision. Let's assume he's right about that. The ancestors are one with the stone now, so if they gave him a vision, it makes sense that they did so with the knowledge provided by the stone. As I've said a few times on this show, Titans are similar to golems, just on a massive scale. So Caridin basically would have been creating a small-scale Titan. Of course, the method in which his vision came to him is a mystery. Was he meditating and it hit him? Did he see something physical that sparked the idea? And of course, was it really the ancestors that did it? Maybe he came up with the idea on his own and credited them? Here's something odd. There's a golem in the primeval Tig. That shouldn't be there. The primeval Tig well predates the first Blight, but Caridin didn't start creating his golems until after the first Blight had begun. We could say Varric is just making it up, but that's a cop-out and not nearly as interesting. The other thing I should mention is the Chapratal. They do something very similar to what Caridin does. Caridin would put a dwarf into the body of a golem, lay them on the anvil, and pour liquid lyrium over them. The Chapratal put one of their kind in armor and submerge them in liquid lyrium, which flows through the gaps and they become bonded to their armor. Those are so similar, and the golem in the primeval Tig makes me think Caridin was not the first one to do this. But about Caridin's vision. I just remembered something. This scene with Dagna in Inquisition, she talks about being face-deep in a rune and she had a vision of her own. I've played that scene so many times on this show, I'm not going to do it again. But the point is that Caridin may have experienced something similar. Switching gears for a minute, let's talk about the Gate Guardians. No, not that one. These ones. This codex entry is found by the Tevinter ritual site in the Western Approach, under these two statues. This entry has a handful of Transformers references, but let's just look at what it says. Apparently, this sculptor encountered a warrior as tall as a mountain. It spoke with a thunderous voice and said it needed the blood of the earth and magic to keep itself alive. The sculptor pointed him to a mage who could help him contact the Dwarves and Lyrium, and the mighty warrior left. Seems like a really nice guy. Anyway, this isn't just a tale. This is an account of the sculptor's experience that gave him the inspiration for these statues. We see them both here and in Kirkwall. Now, how accurate this guy's account is anyone's guess. Whether this figure actually existed is up for debate. I personally find it more likely this was a hallucination caused by a Titan. So what he saw wasn't quite accurate, but it was still true. I should also mention that this artist insisted that each statue be inset with a lyrium rod. That's suspicious. He claims it was mere fancy, but it may have been something of an homage to his vision. I mean, perhaps he was drawn to do this, but wasn't sure why. In any event, the rod could relate to why the Red Lyrium idol brought them to life in the battle at the gallows. Although Red Lyrium does weird stuff anyway, so I don't think the rod actually mattered. Let's talk more about the Anvil of the Void. Just looking at it, we see how much lyrium is in it. But why is the anvil required for golems? Why isn't the lyrium and armor stuff enough? I think the anvil serves as a magical conduit, ensuring that the dwarf's soul is preserved. That said, the Chapratal just submerged their people in a lyrium pool. And then there's the Harvester, although that could just be a case of possession. In the Origins epilogue, we conditionally see that the dwarves try to put a spirit into the body of a golem, but it immediately goes insane. So, I don't know what to make of that. Let's recap. The Shabratal initiation ritual is very similar to the process of creating a golem. There is also a golem in the Primeval Tig, which suggests Caridin is not the first to create golems. That said, the golem in the Tig may be a mistake and not officially canon. However, if Caridin saw a golem or even a Shabratal, it may explain where he got the idea from. Although he may have experienced the same thing Dagna did when she was staring into that rune. Similarly, a Titan may have given a vision to the sculptor that designed the Gate Guardians. I maintain my theory that golems are akin to really small Titans. The Anvil of the Void isn't strictly required to make golems function, but it was required for Caridin to put the soul of a dwarf into one. The Anvil served as a magical conduit, allowing the dwarf to take on a new body and not simply die or their soul return to the stone. Now, I should at least mention the name. Anvil of the Void. A lot of people have noticed this, and I admit I did too. The idea is that the Anvil somehow relates to the Void. However, I don't really see how that would be the case. I think the name is just a coincidence. If anything, the Void part of the name is about dwarven souls and golems and yada yada yada. I'm not saying it definitely doesn't relate to the Void, I'm just saying I don't personally believe that. And I think that's about it. Now, I did skip over a particular golem character from DA2, but fear not, I will talk about him again. So that's it for now, guys. Thank you all so much for watching, and remember, Kala Nadas.